I think that was explosive finding, actually. The fact that there was not even a trace of DNA evidence found on the gun suggests to me that the proximity of the shot is not nearly what the defense attorneys have projected in the past and what they've led us to believe. The lawyers for George Zimmerman have subpoenaed those records, and as a criminal defense attorney, my guess would be that what the attorney is trying to show is that perhaps Trayvon Martin had a propensity toward violence, and that maybe he was the one who was in fact the initial aggressor in the struggle, which would be relevant to the underlying self-defense claim. We'll have to see what this new judge does. I mean, a new judge was just appointed, and we have to find out how this judge will approach things. As a criminal defense attorney, I would say that I would argue that it's directly relevant to the issue of self-defense and who the initial aggressor was, because under the Florida Stand Your Ground statute, that's a really relevant factor as to whether or not, since he's not using stand your ground, he's using the traditional self-defense. But whether or not he was the initial aggressor is really the ultimate question to be answered here. So I think it'll be admitted. Frankly, I think that Attorney O'Meara is pursuing the traditional self-defense because there seems to be a lot of evidence that contradicts the claim of his client. And I think he wants to go into that with a more slower, more deliberative manner of approaching the case. So that's why I think he's going to pursue it that way. And I don't think he's made a lot of friends at the courthouse in the 18th Judicial Circuit here in Sanford, Florida either.
I'll say this. In general, a copy of your identification is not required to be accompanied along with your absentee ballot. However, if this is your first time voting in an election and you haven't presented ID at the time of registration, and therefore the supervisor of elections doesn't have any identification on file for you, then you will have to attach a copy of your driver's license along with your absentee ballot.
Voter suppression consists of many things, not just state voter ID laws, voter purges from the rolls, the voter rolls for states. It also includes curtailing early voting to far fewer days, particularly the 3 days before the Tuesday elections, which has been shown to be the time that minorities primarily participate in voting, and that was the case in 2008. It also consists of making it more difficult for grassroots organizations to register voters, and as well as that, voter challenges, which I think will be a very serious problem this election cycle.
In the state of Florida, any elector can challenge your right to vote, and under Florida law, it requires that you file a provisional ballot instead of a regular ballot. The Florida statute says that the poll watchers are allowed to get as close to the officials' table, the voting table, as is reasonably necessary to do their job. They cannot interact directly with the voters. They cannot ask you questions. They can't look over your shoulders or touch you or do anything like that. Okay? And if they are being disruptive, they are allowed to be within the zone of, the official elections table, but if they are disruptive in any way, again, remember that you have the right under Florida law to vote free from coercion or intimidation. If someone is making you uncomfortable, you have every right to bring that to the attention of the election officials that are there.
This particular election has been characterized by many as one of the most important of our lifetimes. And I tend to agree with that because there are so many things at stake in this particular election. It's almost like a battle for the soul of our country and the direction in which it will take. What kind of America is it that we want to have when we're done with this process? Do we want to have a nation of the haves and have-nots? And opportunities for the special few, or do we want everyone to have an equal opportunity at that? In the next 4 years, there are 4 Supreme Court justices that will be retiring, and therefore we're going to have a lot of vacancies on the Supreme Court. And think about decisions such as Citizens United, Roe versus Wade. There are so many major social issues that are, being debated right now. The Supreme Court ultimately will be deciding these issues again. So we have to be very careful about who it is that we have in those seats as Supreme Justices as they serve for life. And we want a country that's shaped by the type of justices that reflect our values as a people. Voting rights are important because this is something that many people of all colors and backgrounds have fought and died for the right to make this possible for all of us.
Your right to vote that is guaranteed by the Constitution, that's a battle we should only have had to fight once in our lifetime.
It's an issue, one, because it's a fundamental right under the Constitution, and we need to have more rather than less voter participation in this country. Already as it is, we have one of the lowest voter participation rates in the democratized world. So we want our government to be reflective of who we are. Therefore, we want more participation rather than less. We want our government to reflect who we are. Well, there's a lot of federal litigation going on right now, and we've had some wins and some losses. The federal courts have ruled, at least in one state, that the state voter ID law is unduly burdensome on poor people. We've also had, with respect to early voting, that if a state allows early voting, they cannot create 2 classes of people where military can vote 3 days before the election and there's another class of people which cannot. And as we know, minorities vote disproportionately during those 3 days prior to the Tuesday election.